After 60 million years on Earth, the rhinoceros is on the verge of extinction. Soon, elephants may exist only in zoos or protected areas. Half of all primate species are now rare or endangered. Despite heroic efforts, many of the world's wild creatures are doomed. The loss of species is now the same as when the great dinosaurs became extinct. Will these creatures become the dinosaurs of our time? Today, mankind is changing the entire face of planet Earth. We are replacing the natural world with our own. We are destroying our environment at a frightening rate. We are tampering with the future course of evolution. And still, we are amazed by the diversity of life. Of the millions of Earth's creatures, no species is alone. Each is linked to the life that surrounds it. Each holds a unique place in its environment. We are learning that the only way to save species is to save the places where they live. But today, much of the living world is poised on the threshold of extinction. On this fragile planet, life itself may hang in the balance. Because there is always knowledge to be gained, new paths to explore, and mysteries to unlock, the Infinite Voyage is made possible by a grant from Digital Equipment Corporation. Preserved in the rocks of this barren valley near Pueblo, Colorado, is an intriguing chapter in the history of life on Earth. 100 million years ago, this was the bottom of a vast inland sea. Today, it is one of the richest graveyards in the world. Geologist Earl Kaufman has come here to find out what happens when life becomes extinct. He is interested in a cataclysmic event that once destroyed 2/3 of all living things in the sea. The death of life is common throughout Earth history. Layer by layer, the story unfolds of how long ago life went over the edge.
Let's clear this slope off here and let's look at some fresh rock. We'll need fresh rock for chemical sampling anyway.
Kaufman reads the layers like the pages of a book.
See how dramatic that color change is? That's the beginning of this ocean chemistry event that we see. Below the color change right there in the rock. That'll be our reference point. Okay, so the second nail will then go 10 centimeters higher, right at the color change, right at that point. And that will define our first sampling interval. Okie doke. To do that this way.
To find out what happened to the creatures that lived here, he takes one sample every 1,000 years, before, during, and after the extinction.
Now this is the pre-extinction level, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And this is sample number 18.
Sample 18, 10 centimeters.
In his laboratory at the University of Colorado,
Barren interval.
Kaufman counts the number of fossils in each sample.
Then we begin to pick up a few more fossils here. As you can see, we have those
Oh, yeah.
inoceramids again.
That's a good, healthy bottom fauna. There are also juveniles of the same species. And we have an ammonite, Stomohamides, in here.
In the early samples, Kaufman would identify 350 species, but the next sample shows no signs of life.
Looks like the dead zone.
Yeah, we should be in it. Definitely. There's not one fossil on those surfaces in through there, so the extinction is virtually complete. And there's no disturbance whatsoever. No burrowing, no nothing. The bottom is dead. And this is interesting because here's one fossil, one beastie. Looks very small, probably a clam of some sort. But otherwise, there's not a fossil in the rock, and it's totally undisturbed.
At first, species gradually declined. Then suddenly, mysteriously, they disappeared. Kaufman now believes the fate of one species may be closely linked to the fate of another.
Species that comprise an ecosystem are not just separate species, but rather they're closely linked ecologically into a type of a structure, into food webs, into symbioses or obligate relationships between organisms. And considering this then, a mass extinction is not just the loss of one species at a time, but the loss of species until some key species in the food chain or some key species or set of species in the ecological structure are affected. And when they go, the entire ecosystem will collapse around them very rapidly.
To look for the key species, Kaufman's samples are examined for other organisms. The first link in the oceanic food chain were creatures smaller than a grain of sand called plankton. The plankton are painstakingly separated and classified. Before the extinction, there were some 60 species. Then their numbers began to decline. When the plankton fell below a critical level, larger organisms began to disappear. With the food chain broken, the system collapsed. The balance was tipped, and life tumbled into extinction. Could this ancient pattern occur again? Earl Kaufman.
Our research shows us that mass extinctions are relatively common in the ancient record. They occur every 26 to 30 million years in a roughly cyclic nature, perhaps triggered by extraterrestrial phenomena like comet and meteorite impacts. If that cyclicity holds, then we can expect the next natural mass extinction to occur 12 to 14 million years from now. But on the other hand, if we look at the modern world, we see that the rate of species and diversity loss and the destruction of habitats that is going on today parallels in magnitude virtually all ancient mass extinctions that we know well. Except this mass extinction is not triggered by some extraterrestrial phenomena and not even natural changes in the global environment. It's triggered by man, man's destruction of habitat, man's destruction of the diversity of life on Earth, man's pollution of the atmosphere. Man, in fact, may be regarded as a human meteorite, but one that is unpredictable in cyclic mass extinction theory.
Today, man has the technology to change the world. Nature is disappearing, replaced with crops, stripped away for resources, paved over as cities expand. Human need and human waste are threatening the web of life. In 40 years, the human population will double from 5 to 10 billion. But already our species is overrunning the planet. A tapestry of lights track the human presence across the Earth. The Sea of Japan is ablaze with the lights of a gigantic fishing fleet. Gas fires in the Middle East outline the oil-rich Persian Gulf. Fires in Africa fuel the struggle against famine in the Third World. Forest fires in South America signal the end of an untouched wilderness. Less than 100 years ago, no city lights were visible from space. Now they glow like stars against the night sky. With the coming of the space age, our view of Earth took an epic turn. For the first time, we saw a blue oasis, fragile and delicate. Now, with satellite technology, we can monitor the health of planet Earth. At NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center in Maryland, Compton Tucker draws from a vast library of satellite images to construct a unique map. This is a map of life. It follows changes on the planet from one season to another. Over the past 8 years, Tucker has observed subtle shifts in the Earth's vegetation.
Houston Discovery, well, we're looking down at you, Houston. Looks like they're real clear down there today. It's a pretty view.
October 1988, the shuttle Discovery returns to space on a mission to photograph the Earth.
Our environment is a very fragile thing, and I think that's something that we're very impressed by when we take photos and as we look out the windows.
As the astronauts fly across the Amazon, they are stunned by what they see.
When you fly over South America, you see these incredibly large fires. It must be 10 miles across, all over, especially the Amazon basin, where they're burning off the vegetation, and it just fills the whole continent with smoke.
Compton Tucker has been monitoring these fires since 1982. His images confirm that in one state of Brazil called Rondônia, the forest is being destroyed twice as fast as previously thought. Here, 14,000 square miles have been burned in the last decade. The destruction was triggered when a single highway was cut through the forest. Now a network of roads, visible from space, has grown like the branches of a geometric tree. In Rondônia, the opening of the forest frontier echoes the settlement of the American West. But with modern tools, homesteaders are transforming the wilderness with deadly efficiency. An ancient rainforest is becoming fields and pastures. If the trend continues, by the turn of the century, 55,000 square miles of Rondonia will have gone up in smoke. For many years, environmental scientist Norman Myers has voiced his concern about the destruction of rainforests.
I have some images here from the Amazon basin, Rondonia, Mato Grosso, and Acre.
Compton Tucker has invited Myers to review his most recent findings. One image is particularly disturbing.
Quite a few fires there. It says 2,500.
Yes, now that's just an estimate, say 2,500, perhaps plus or minus 300 or 400. Now, each point we see is 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer, and it could be within that area. We could have 2 or 3 smaller fires burning.
Sure.
So that's why we say approximately that
Right.
there are at least 2,500 fires actively burning at this particular time, at about 2:45 in the afternoon, from the 9th of September of last year.
In this area, an area just the size of Montana, those fires are causing the extinction of at least one plant species per week, and maybe 2 or 3, maybe more animal species, mainly insects, per day. If NASA, with one of its space probes to Mars or somewhere, found even a single life form on one of those planets, it would make headline news. There'd be more probes sent off to have a look at this little thing, this extraordinary phenomenon. And yet here we are, evidence on this screen that we're pushing species down the tubes on our own planet at a rate of several per week. It seems so ironic.
Extinction rates are imprecise, but Myers is alarmed by the trend.
Now, some people might say, well, if we lost several species yesterday, but the sun still came up this morning and the newspapers came out on time and so on, does it really matter? It does matter in the long run. It matters enormously, absolutely. The best way to think about it is through Paul Ehrlich's comparison of the aeroplane. Pretend you're getting on an aeroplane and you see a mechanic taking rivets out of the wing. And you say to him, what are you doing that for? And he says, well, we need them for another aeroplane. And it doesn't matter because every aeroplane has tens of thousands of rivets, so a few won't matter. Would you really get on that aeroplane? Wouldn't you say to yourself, how do we know when a few becomes many, becomes too many?
What splendid creatures once lived here, we will never know. But one fact is known: there is no return from extinction. The Manu River in eastern Peru, a last great unspoiled wilderness. A pioneering group of Peruvian and American biologists, led by Terry Irwin of the Smithsonian Institution, has accepted an extraordinary challenge. They are here to inventory one of the richest concentrations of life on Earth.
Dinner is ready.
The project is called BioLat. For the next 4 weeks, a remote ranger station will be home. From this base, the group will identify and catalog every plant and animal they can find. Their goal is to construct a detailed anatomy of a threatened ecosystem before it disappears.
We're not talking about just the extinction of a few species. We're talking about, under the present mode of deforestation, we're talking about extinction of the evolutionary process. This process that here around us in this surroundings has taken 40 million years to develop. BioLat wants to address very quickly the inventory of species, how these species fit together, so that we can make predictions on how to save this wonderful biological diversity for the future.
Three-quarters of all living things can be found in rainforests, most of them high in the treetops. The larger species are more familiar. They have long been exotic symbols of the Amazon jungle. These creatures represent only a fraction of forest life. Their existence depends on a less visible world, a world even more mysterious and complex.
De manera de prepararse para la lluvia, ¿no? Para la época de lluvia tienes la semilla ya.
The dazzling array of plants and insects in a rainforest is testament to the creativity of life. Each species has evolved a unique strategy for survival. Katydids outwit their predators by mimicking leaves, one dead, one alive. Toxic chemicals in the spines of a caterpillar teach birds to leave it alone. Plants also use chemicals for protection. But a highly organized community of leafcutter ants can strip a tree in a matter of hours. Each creature, in his own way, has found a home in the forest.
Look at those mandibles and the spines on the thorax. And Neela spotted it just sitting on the edge of the tree, very close in. Okay, back to work.
To undertake the study of this fascinating world, Terry Irwin has devised a clever plan. The forest is divided into 100-yard plots. Prominent trees are identified and labeled. Their exact locations are entered into a computer and will become reference points within the plot. Maps are then generated to guide researchers in the field. Botanist Robin Burnham samples leaves from the forest floor.
In this quadrant that you see here, other ones that I've collected from the same forest, same type of forest, include as many as 50 species in a single half-meter square quadrat. That's rather surprising to me that we can get 50 species of leaves in an area that small, because if you think of it, surrounding an area this small with 50 different species of trees is going to be pretty tight, and that's probably one of the indications of the high diversity of the forest that I'm working in.
Grace Servat, a Peruvian ornithologist, stretches nets across the corridors of the forest so low-flying birds can be caught and identified. Piranhas inhabit the Manu. Still, biologists brave its backwaters. The river teems with life, but even in the tropics, a fish is hard to catch. At sunset, the forest comes alive with creatures of the night. Bats play a critical role in the life of the forest by dispersing seeds, and Don Wilson is concerned about their future.
Bats all over the world are having problems because of forest destruction and loss of habitat. Places like this probably have a greater diversity of bats than just about anywhere in the world. You get a good look at his feet there. He uses those feet to scoop insects off of the surface of the water, probably.
That's a good one. Here's the second one tonight. Oh, there's the first one of those I've seen on a trip. Where did it go?
Oliver Flint has been collecting insects since his early teens. After 45 years, he's still excited by something new.
So when I see something that looks new and different, not quite so common, I'll make a special grab for that one. If I can survive with all the stuff flying in my face all the time. And one sort of tends to not breathe.
Terry Irwin prepares to explore life in the treetops. He has designed a systematic way to investigate a realm that has long eluded biologists. Using the computer map, Irwin locates the trees in the plot laid out the day before.
I think we can get 2 or 3 right here.
A specific tree is selected. Stakes are placed around its perimeter.
Okay, por favor, Jesus y Julia.
Cone-shaped collecting trays are set in place, but the experiment must wait until the next morning when the air is still. Before dawn, the trays are readied. At first light, the experiment begins. A cloud of biodegradable insecticide is blown upward. A slight updraft along the trunk carries it to the top of the canopy. The chemical is lethal to insects, but after 2 hours, it is completely harmless. This single tree will produce an incredible 2,000 species of insects. Each species of tree has its own unique community. If there are thousands of different trees in the forest, the number of insects can stagger the imagination.
A lot of biomass dropped out this morning, huh?
Yeah. Weighs 2 pounds of insects.
Now the difficult task of sorting and identification begins. It is already apparent they are seeing many new species for the first time. It has been estimated that 5 million species of plants and animals inhabit the Earth. But Terry Irwin has a new hypothesis. He believes there may be 10 times more species than previously thought. We may be sharing the planet with 50 million other species.
Wow. How many species of ants?
On a single tree in Peru, 48 species of ants have been found, more than in all the British Isles. In the rainforests, trees are islands of life. There are less than 1,000 species in North America. But in Peru alone, 5,000 have been identified. Why does such enormous diversity exist in the tropics? Terry Irwin believes the rainforest is the cradle of life, a nursery where countless life forms unfold in new and wondrous ways. These creatures, distant from our own backyards, may seem alien and insignificant, but each is a unique experiment, a prototype in the evolutionary process. Diversity is the raw material from which new life forms spring. Here there are hundreds of variations on a single theme. Each is a specialist, one of 50 million moving parts, working in harmony to create a living machine, the world in which we live. The exploration of its vast dimensions has just begun. Yet will our journey come to an untimely end? It takes only a moment to cut down a tree. Southern California, an endless vista of urban sprawl. Once the last American frontier, civilization has now piled up along its coast.
Further south, we have a problem with the San Diego Freeway. Spectators flowing from an earlier slammer near the slots and on-ramp. On the 405...
Linked by a vast network of highways, a megalopolis stretches all the way from Los Angeles to the Mexican border, except for 17 miles. North of San Diego, the United States Marine Corps base at Camp Pendleton was set aside in 1942 for training and maneuvers. Today, Camp Pendleton is the only major stretch of undeveloped coastline in all of Southern California. Along the perimeter, only a fire break separates civilization from 200 square miles of natural habitat called chaparral. It is home to a unique community of creatures who have come to depend on one another. Some birds rely on the cover of vegetation to protect them from predators. Other relationships are more subtle. Contrary to popular folklore, the roadrunner owes its survival to the coyote, the king of the chaparral. Here, over millions of years, a delicate balance of life has evolved. Now it is threatened with extinction. In San Diego, exploding land values and population pressure have left the chaparral in fragments. Isolated pockets locked in a human grid. Finger canyons slip away from crowded mesa tops. Natural islands are surrounded by a sea of development. Crowded hilltops have slopes too steep to develop. Conservation biologist Michael Soule of the University of Michigan has come here to study how wildlife is affected by this fragmentation. His attachment to the chaparral goes back to his San Diego childhood, but life in this canyon is not what he remembers as a boy.
Here's a native.
California buckwheat, but the patches of it are so scattered. A lot of the introduced weeds are just more aggressive than the native plants and outcompete them for light or for water. You look down the canyon, all you see are the introduced species.
New plants creep into canyons from homes and gardens above. Here, these silent invaders have quickly replaced the native species. Over the past 4 years, Soulé has studied 37 isolated canyons of different size and age.
This is a medium-sized canyon, about 20 acres. It's relatively pristine. It's about 20 years old. The habitat's in very good shape in terms of the vegetation. But already in this canyon, we've witnessed the extinctions of 2 major birds, the California quail and the roadrunner. There's still rabbits here. There's still quite a few native rodents and quite a few native chaparral birds. What we're seeing here is an effect of isolation, an effect of fragmentation. This road right here is not very wide, but it's wide enough to prevent the movement of these birds and mammals into the canyon once they have gone extinct in this canyon.
In a canyon, the balance of life changes quickly. Soulé wants to find out if the rate of extinction is related to the size of the canyon.
Oh, yeah. Mockingbird. Oh, there's a jay there, too. And a Bewick's wren.
In addition to birds, Soulé and his colleagues also count the rodent population.
This big one. There he is. Wow.
It's a young female.
It's a neotoma, and it's a neotoma lepida.
An annual census of birds, plants, and mammals reveals how many species have disappeared.
It's okay, it's okay. I'll let you go, I promise.
By comparing the number of different species over time, Soulé has discovered a critical link in the life of the chaparral.
Got 4 species, harvest mouse, 2 species of wood rat, and 1 deer mouse.
Some species in some habitats or ecosystems are critical or keystone species, and if one removes those species, then a whole subset of the community collapses or goes extinct. And we're seeing evidence in this study that if the coyote is taken out of the canyons, that the extinction rate of the birds goes sky high, and we lose a whole group of birds very quickly. So the coyotes turn out to be a very important strand in the web of life that is these canyons.
In this delicate web, the creatures of the chaparral are bound together in unexpected ways. The coyote preys on raccoons, possums, foxes, and other animals that eat birds. Without the coyote to protect them, the birds soon vanish. When a canyon is too small, the coyote disappears, and the life of the chaparral collapses.
The species go extinct pretty much at a rate that the habitat disappears. The smaller the habitat, the faster local populations of birds and mammals disappear. And as the habitat is eroded by disturbance, the birds and mammals disappear at the same rate that the disturbance occurs.
Michael Soulé has learned that the smaller the canyon, the faster life goes extinct. But in the end, no canyon is large enough. He estimates that in 100 years, the chaparral and all its life will be gone. His conclusion is sobering. When a habitat is fragmented, species become extinct. It's only a matter of time. What is happening to life in these canyons is happening across the entire surface of planet Earth. Scientists have identified ecological hotspots, regions where life is under attack. At this moment, on every continent, species are becoming extinct in numbers that rival the great catastrophes of the fossil record. As habitats shrink, the future of life hangs in the balance. A great forest once stretched 2,000 miles from Mexico to Panama. Today in northwest Costa Rica, only 2% remains. Here is perhaps the most endangered ecosystem on Earth, a tropical dry forest. Unlike a rainforest, it changes from season to season, and its soil is fertile. 500 years ago, Costa Rica's dry forest was larger than its neighboring rainforest, but it was also more vulnerable. Early settlers found it easy to transform the dry forest into pasture and farmland. Today, the fields are cut and burned to keep them clear. Herds of cattle graze peacefully amid the last fragments of the forest. Isolated patches are all that remain. Dan Jansen first came to Costa Rica 25 years ago. Each year when he returned, he saw his study areas disappear, and in 1985, he had a dream: to rescue an ecosystem from extinction.
Okay, now the adventure you guys are going to go on, just here, if I can find it. Okay. Now, this is the Pan American Highway going up here like this, right? Mm-hmm. That's the La Cruz. What you're going to do is go across the road and
with the aid of the Costa Rican government and the local community, Jansen plans to regrow like 250 square miles of dry forest in what will someday become Guanacaste National Park.
The idea is to take these mahogany seedlings and put a mahogany population back into that piece of forest. So what you're going to do, it's as if the seeds blew out there in the dry season, as they do, and then germinated nicely in the tree falls. So what you guys do is you literally take a bag and you walk around and you look for tree fall. You look for a place where the sun's coming down and there's a piece of bare ground in it, and you just plant it like that.
It's easy to plant a tree, but the complexities of restoring a forest are a far different challenge. How does one come to know the thousands of species and the role each plays in the delicate balance of a tropical ecosystem? Each day, volunteers collect mice for a study Jansen started 9 years ago. The ritual begins every morning after breakfast. First, the mouse is weighed. Tattoos identify him. Jansen knows this mouse well, as he knew his parents and grandparents before him. Mice thrive on seeds. Too many mice can virtually stop the growth of a forest. Tucked in his cheek pouch are seeds Jansen will later identify.
Which means it's a 1,208th mouse caught and marked in the plot since we began.
By documenting the balance between mice and seeds, Jansen has found a way to monitor the health of the forest. The mouse is returned unhurt to the spot where he was found, to be caught again another day. Colorful and exotic, caterpillars are a paradox. They consume more vegetation than any other creature in the forest, but without them, many plants would die.
Creo que son 5. Busca las hojas más nuevas.
With the help of 2 Costa Rican assistants, Jansen is conducting a long-term experiment with caterpillars. He is studying some 3,000 different species to see what they eat.
Llevar estos enfrente para recordar más fácil, no hay problema.
For the next 3 weeks, this caterpillar will live in a bag until it becomes a moth. Jansen will then know how the caterpillar, plant, and moth are all linked together. Moths are important pollinators. Without them, many forest plants would disappear. The dry forest is also a breeding ground for moths that pollinate plants hundreds of miles away in the rainforest. Still, they have another role.
If you remove the moths from this forest, there would be quite a dramatic change because you'd lose major sets of pollinators. Perhaps even more obvious immediately, you'd lose major pieces of food for the bird community. There's a whole set of birds here who breed only on the caterpillars of these moths, so that if you lost the moths, you'd lose the birds. See, when we say biodiversity, it's more than a list of species. It's all the things they do to and with each other. And again, by plants, you can save an awful lot of species of plants in botanical gardens. But that's just saving the individual pieces. It's not saving any of the interactions, and the interactions are what biodiversity is. And so when I say that we want to keep this place together as an example of tropical dry forest biodiversity, I'm referring not to the list of species that's here. In fact, if I had to give up and allow the extinction of 10% of the species to save the whole complex, I'd gladly dump the 10% of the species. Because your lose of the species are only a little piece of the whole biodiversity picture.
After years of painstaking work, Dan Jansen has conceived a blueprint to link the fragments of a dry forest together. His plan is elegant and simple. If pasture land is left untouched, seeds born on the wind will begin to take root. With new growth comes shade, and old residents return. Once the balance between animals and plants is restored, nature takes over and the forest begins to grow.
The dung was dropped here back in April or May, and the tree seedlings are now growing very, very well. Well, out here, the grass and the young trees are still mixed together pretty well. And it is a very brushy and trashy look to it, and there's obviously a lot of sun getting on the ground. But back here, the trees, by accident, happen to be closer together, so the shade is intense enough to have actually taken out virtually all of the grass. So in here, we're really far enough along so that it's the beginnings of a proper young forest, because the grass is gone now, there's not much fire hazard, and it's shady enough so animals will walk through here freely, defecate seeds, a lot of circulation of birds through the canopy of the trees, they defecate seeds, and gradually now this is well on its way to becoming a proper young piece of forest. Instead of being an old pasture with a few trees in it, now it's actually turned into an actual forest.
To help the forest regenerate, nature needs a little nudge. Mahogany seedlings are planted in open pasture. Their shade will lure animals from the forest. Eventually, a lost wilderness will return.
Humans for millions of years, literally, have had the behavior of, instead of trying to live off of the wild world, you push it back and then put your own things in place. And those own things are things that are dependent on either corn plants or cows or deer or whatever they happen to be, but there's something. Well, for millions of years, humans have been relatively incompetent at this game. So they push nature back and nature pushes back at them, and it's a balance. It's some kind of an equilibrium. Well, more rapidly in the last 1,000 years and almost with lightning-like speed in the last 10 to 50 years, humans have won the game over the entire surface of the earth, i.e. they've acquired the technical ability to obliterate nature, i.e. they've won. The problem is that humans are socially and genetically programmed to clean the field. Because always before, the minute you clean the field and you stop cleaning it, boom, back in came nature. Now there's no more nature, there's just the neighbor's field. We're right at that stage right now where we have the option to wipe the enemy off the slate or to keep the enemy there and recognize he really wasn't the enemy in a total sense, that he was something that was worthwhile keeping. That's the big choice for humans. The way I see it is that my job is to just keep some of the enemy around until humans reach the level of social sophistication so they as a group look and say, oh yeah, you know, we really, yes, we had to beat that enemy, but we didn't want to sweep him off the surface of the earth.
The web of life in the dry forest remains infinitely complex. For Dan Jansen, a lifetime is not enough. It may be 1,000 years before the forest returns. But slowly, imperceptibly, it is inching outward. For the first time, an entire ecosystem is being rescued from the threshold of extinction. There was a time when we thought we could live without the wild things. Now we marvel at the beauty of the natural world. No creature is too great or too small. Each has a unique genetic heritage, its link to the past and to the future. Each is an exquisite creation in its own right, yet part of a living whole. But for the first time, the future of this web of life is threatened by a single species. We are pushing our earthly companions toward extinction 1,000 times faster than at any time in history. Scientists sound the alarm, while their work may offer hope.
The common pattern we see early in ancient mass extinctions is that they can be reversed. And so because we're in the early phases of our modern mass extinction, man finds himself in a very interesting role. He is not only the perpetrator and the potential savior of the global biota, but if mass extinction is allowed to go full swing, he may be one of the first victims.
You're programmed to want complexity, you're also programmed to eliminate it. Because for a long time, you couldn't eliminate it. All you did was you kept trying. And that was the way you survived, was by trying. Now all of a sudden you can. You win. You won. So now you're gonna have to reverse your own programming. Say, okay, we're not gonna go out there and put the screw to the last guy on the battlefield.
If we don't change the way we live, not only will the rest of the species on the planet be in serious trouble, but we will be too.
If we have the information on which to base our decisions about the natural world, we can make the right decisions. And that's what I expect in my eternal optimism that we're going to do.
There's never, ever been a time like this. You see, all generations in the past have not faced this challenge because the problem wasn't there. And no generation in the future will face this challenge, because if we don't get to grips with the problem, they'll have nothing left except to pick up the pieces. We are really, you might say, a privileged generation.
Will we have the wisdom or the time to alter the patterns of history? Or is this the beginning of a long goodbye to the only home we know? Because there is always knowledge to be gained, new paths to explore, and mysteries to unlock, the Infinite Voyage is made possible by a grant from Digital Equipment Corporation.